The Ramsey County Board of Commissioners meeting is now called to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Fretham,
Here.
Modis Castillo,
Here.
McDonough,
Here.
McGuire,
Here.
Ortega,
Aye.
Reinhardt,
Here.
Carter.
Here. Thank you very much. Commissioner McDonough, would you please share the Pledge of Allegiance while the rest of us mute? Thank you.
It'd be my honor, Madam Chair. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty, hope, and justice for all.
Thank you very, very much. And the agenda of today's meeting, February 9th, is before you for approval. Their motion.
So moved, Madam Chair.
And a second.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner McGuire, Commissioner Reinhardt. Is there any discussion on the agenda? Roll call, please.
McDonough,
Aye.
McGuire,
Aye.
Ortega,
Aye.
Reinhardt,
Aye.
Fretham,
Aye.
Modis Castillo,
Aye.
Carter.
Aye. The agenda has passed, and the minutes of February 2nd are before you for approval. Is there motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Ortega. A second.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner McDonough. So the minutes are before you. Are there any comments, questions, additions, changes? Roll call, please.
McDonough,
Aye.
McGuire,
Aye.
Ortega,
Aye.
Reinhardt,
Aye.
Fretham,
Aye.
Modis Castillo,
Aye.
Carter.
Aye. Thank you very much. The minutes have passed, and today we have the honor of a proclamation to honor Black History Month. And I'll ask Commissioner Ortega if he will share the proclamation for us. There are others on the line who are here with us. We'll ask them to come online with us, and after the proclamation, share reflections. Commissioner Ortega.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's my pleasure to read this proclamation. Whereas in 1926, Dr. Carter Goodwin Woodson launched the celebration of Negro History Week, and whereas February 1986 marked the beginning of National Black History Month to honor, recognize, promote, and preserve Black history and culture, and whereas the theme for the 2021 Ramsey County and City of St. Paul Black History Month observance is recognizing the Black family, and whereas the Black family is recognized for its long history and contributions nationally and locally, from the foundations built upon forced slavery, the migration across the United States for a better life, the building of local communities, faith-based organizations and businesses, and many notable historical and contemporary examples of the Black family as a powerful force and voice for social change. And whereas Ramsey County recognizes and celebrates the Black family and their connection, heritage, and commitment to one another and the broader community, and whereas Ramsey County recognizes how the Black family has helped to shape a future that is progressive through positive change, connected through old traditions, and that has secured fundamental rights of self-determination and racial justice in our communities and beyond. And whereas the role of the Black family has provided the foundation for intimate conversations between elders, parents, and caregivers with their children and family about lived experiences, histories, and traditions. And whereas the Black family continues to build legacies that are rich in history and that guides individuals and communities. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed, the Ramsey County Board of Commissioners recognizes February as Black History Month in Ramsey County, and be it further proclaimed, the Ramsey County Board of Commissioners urges all Ramsey County employees and residents to honor, celebrate, and support the Black family as they hold deep roots of wisdom, progress, and resilience. Thank you.
And thank you so very much, Commissioner Ortega, for that reading of the proclamation. We do have others who are joining us on the screen. I know that the County Manager O'Connor has been holding the proclamation in the chambers as well. And I'm going to turn then to the chambers, to our County Manager, to introduce and turn this over to others who have something to say to us today. Thank you so much, County Manager O'Connor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members, and for Commissioner Ortega for reading today's proclamation. I will turn it over to Sarah Holly and Prince Corbett, two of our racial and health equity administrators, to share a few more thoughts. But I also wanted to recognize the more than 600 Black employees across Ramsey County and the important contributions they make both to our organization and across our neighborhoods and communities every single day, from the board chair seat on down. And we appreciate those contributions in helping build the community that we wish to see and break down long-lasting inequities and barriers to progress that have unfortunately been a part of our story and stories across America. So with that, I will turn it over to Prince and Sarah to share some more thoughts and hopefully re-mention the events that we have planned for the rest of the month as well.
Thank you very much. And Prince and Sarah, welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners, County Manager O'Connor. I'm going to yield to Ms. Arlene Hubbard to kick us off this morning. Arlene.
Welcome, Arlene.
Welcome. I'm unable to show my face because the host has me blocked. So just letting you know that.
All right.
So good morning. My name is Arlene Hubbard. I'm with Ramsey County. And I am on the board with the city of St. Paul, where we have a collaboration for Black History Month during February. And so our first week, we've already kicked it off where we did African American entrepreneurship. We presented 4 panelists from the community representing their businesses and asking questions about those businesses. During the second week, which is this week here, we're doing an interactive video conversation where people get to learn about the ancestors, where they come from, kind of a journey, if you will, and then they can have a conversation. The third week, which will be the following week, we have the talk, where we have a conversation with our Black community on interactions with the police. And so those presenters, it's a community member, a therapist, and our very own retired Sergeant Melvin Carter Jr. The fourth week, we have the final week, where we will share our history of soul food and its importance in the Black families. All events are happening via stream with the city of St. Paul. There's a link on the website, and with Ramsey County, we share our site with RamseyNet. And so those are the things that we're doing for the month of February with the city and Ramsey County collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Arlene.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. I wanted to share some words with you of Harlem Renaissance poet Langston Hughes. I too sing America. I am the darker brother. They send me to eat in the kitchen when company comes, but I laugh and eat well and grow strong. Tomorrow, I'll be at the table when company comes. Nobody will dare say to me, eat in the kitchen. Then, besides, they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. I too am America. I too was a cry of protest against American racism. Langston Hughes, a Black man, laments in the way that he was excluded from American society, even though he is a part of it. But the speaker argues that Black people have preserved and will preserve through the injustices of racism and segregation by developing a vibrant, beautiful, and independent cultural tradition. A cultural tradition so powerful that it will eventually compel society to recognize Black contributions to American life and history. For many employees at Ramsey County, 2021 will mark as a historic year, as it is the year that Ramsey County relaunched employee resource groups. There have been quite a few informal groups of Ramsey County employees who have connected outside of work to support and network with each other. But now, with the support of the Human Resources, Diversity, Inclusion, and Organizational Development Unit, we have launched the Ramsey County Black Excellence Employee Resource Group, with our first official meeting being held February 18th. Ramsey County Black Excellence is a family of Black employees that will advance the understanding and racial equity of employees who identify as Black by fostering networking, professional development, mentoring, leadership opportunities, and continued excellence of Black employees of Ramsey County. This is an opportunity collectively for us to be at the table when company comes and see how beautiful we are. We are supported by our co-sponsors, Deputy County Manager Karen Francois and Kathy Hadeen, co-leads Lee Atakpu, Dr. Altricia Foster-Bentho, and Zakaria Nagatu, and a planning team consisting of Sarah Holly, Nina Harris, Zachary Hilton, Dr. Ray Moss, William Moore, Arlene Hubbard, and myself. In the words of Langston Hughes, Ramsey County Black Excellence, we too are America. We too are Ramsey County. We thank you for your continued support to advance racial equity for our residents, businesses, community organizations, and employees. Thank you.
Thank you, Prince. Madam Chair, Commissioners, and County Manager O'Connor, again, thank you for this opportunity today to honor and recognize the Black family during our 2021 Black History Month observance. Each year, the National Association for the Study of African American Life and History identifies the theme that many states, cities, and counties take time to reflect on and to celebrate. Ms. Evelyn Brooks, the president of the National Association for the Study of African American Life and History, states that the Black family theme offers a window onto the African American experience over the generations because family-oriented examples, stories, images, and concepts have long inspired and mobilized African Americans in individual and collective efforts of self-help and self-determination, as well as in their quest for racial equality and social justice. Despite the negative pathological images of Black families portrayed in the 19th century, justifications for slavery, and in the 20th century, governmental policy reports that the march of time has proved that the Black family best represents the source of perseverance and resilience that brought African Americans through centuries of enslavement, Jim Crow laws, and the glaring racial inequalities and dangers that continue to this day. This year, the city of St. Paul and Ramsey County recognize and celebrate the Black family. The history of the Black family, our heritage, traditions, and legacy is America's history. We hope that everyone, as Ms. Arlene has stated, will take the time to attend at least one virtual event this month. As stated, this week the event will be a forum and week-long discussion about the connectedness and the differentiation within the Black community and African diaspora. It takes place on Friday, February 12th from noon to 1 p.m. Please check RamseyNet for more information. Thank you.
And thank you so very much. It is an honor to have you here with us on the board meeting today, not only to share with us what is happening during this Black History Month, and we do appreciate the rich set of activities that you have shared with us, but also to reflect on that history in this artistic way with my favorite poem, I Too Sing America, and to uplift the work that is happening here in our community and in Ramsey County together with our community. I must say that it is an honor for me, and I thank you so very much for bringing this forward today. I saw hands, and don't put them down, you know. I know that we want to hear from you. And I did see a couple of hands that went up and then went down, but I want to make sure that board members who have something to say are able to this morning. So should I call you out, or do you want to just raise your hand or speak up? I know I saw a couple of you. So,
Madam Chair, maybe you can't see our hands up.
oh, there it is. Yeah. Commissioner Matas Castillo.
Yes, Madam Chair. I just want to say, You know, I think the evidence of the amount of work and the power of our Racial Equity Action Team is evident this morning in this proclamation. This might be the most beautifully written proclamation I have heard to date. And it is really, truly because of the input and the engagement and that it's authentic. And I really hope that the community is listening and to see the power of the Black voices in Ramsey County, and that we really support this community. And I encourage everyone to participate. I know I have signed up for a few of the events and look forward to, there is a lot of Black History Month. And as you said it so well, Black history is all of our history. And so thank you so much for your work on this. Thank you, Arlene, for coming to join our Ramsey County team today as well. And let's celebrate Black history, not just this month, but every month in Ramsey County.
And I do see your hand, Commissioner Reinhardt. The screen's moved around on me. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just, again, this is the work that's been done and how inspirational everything was. And I love the poem as well. It is a great way to start our Tuesday. And I just want to say thank you. And I believe that I heard Commissioner McDonough added a word today to the pledge and said hope at the end. And it was not lost on me, and I know others as well, because I saw other faces, and how it just is so appropriate, especially now when what we're trying to do is really make sure that there's hope and inspiration and motivation, and how we are all coming together, because that's what we need to do to get us back on track, or on track, I guess. I don't know if back is the correct, I know that back is not the correct word. And thank you to the folks that have joined us today and who you represent, and how important you are to Ramsey County and our future, and inspirational. Again, I guess that's the most important word: hope and inspiration. Thank you.
Thank you again to our board members for reflecting the thoughts of this entire board, and also to Arlene and Sarah and Prince for being here this morning, and to County Manager O'Connor for your reflections, not just on this shortest month of the year, but on the work that is proceeding throughout the years to honor, to reflect, and to embrace Black history and its impact on all and for all of us. We really appreciate the proclamation this morning. Thank you, Commissioner Ortega. And we're moving on then in our agenda to our COVID update, for which I'll call on County Manager O'Connor.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Commissioner McDonough had a comment as well.
Oh, thank
He had
you.
his hand up.
Thank you. Commissioner McDonough, my apologies.
No worries, Madam Chair. Just two things I wanted to support Commissioner Matt Castile and her observation about how well written that proclamation was, and the presentation today. And it drove excitement. I could feel it. But most of all, I just wanted to verbally and out loud acknowledge, as Prince was reciting the poem, I noticed you were reciting it also with him by heart. So I thought that was pretty cool also. Thank you.
Thank you. It is one of my favorites. Go ahead, Commissioner McGuire.
Madam Chair, it appears as though our hands, like mine's really light. I have to darken my hand so you can see it when it's raised, but also these reactions, I think a number of us were applauding as they were doing. So you saw our hands being raised in applause. So then they go down automatically. So it's just an interesting phenomenon of Zoom, that the applause looks almost similar to a hand raise. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, and just wanted to add my gratitude to all the presenters and to all the really relevant and amazing words that people spoke. We absolutely support this work, and I'm also looking forward to many of the activities that are going to be going on here, and just to say thanks to everyone for all of their efforts in making this a really memorable event and to just keep continuing. And Commissioner Reinhardt, you're right. I heard hope as well, and I was excited to hear it. And it's amazing to me how many phrases we have that reflect back on track. I think we'll start forward on track. You know, we don't want to go back to work. We want to go forward to work. So I think we all want to be keeping moving forward. And I applaud our county for their continued efforts in that, and to everyone on this call. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner McGuire. So again, I appreciate all the comments. Looking, and I don't see hands. And so, there's Commissioner Ortega. Commissioner Ortega, your real hand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm having trouble finding my on the screen. Anyway, I just want to say that it's when I heard Prince read the poem. As many of you know, I went to high school in Harlem on 125th Street in New York City, so I got to learn quite a bit with my peers and celebrating in those days during the 70s when there was a lot going on in terms of the civil rights movement. And so it brought back a lot of memories. And I thank all of the presenters for coming forward, and hopefully we could, you know, it's really about, you could set the example that we should be celebrating, and we will, all the different cultural groups in our community and in the county. And you're a great example of how we can move forward and weave together a different tapestry for Ramsey County. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Ortega, for that reflection. And in fact, indeed, as we have begun to, we will continue to recognize all of our communities. I appreciate again the attendance here and the thoughts shared. And we will move on then to the balance of our agenda, starting with our COVID update. County Manager O'Connor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, we have a full COVID-19 update today. We'll start with the public health information and dashboard, so I'll turn it over to Deputy County Manager Kathy Hadeen.
Thank you, County Manager O'Connor, and thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Good morning. Today, we'll provide a COVID-19 situation update and focus on the need for more equitable vaccine response. Incident Commander Laura Anderson and Medical Director Dr. Lynn Ogawa are here to give an update on additional vaccine FDA approvals, variants, and provide you with Ramsey County vaccine distribution update. So let's move over to the dashboard, please. All right, in Minnesota, in total, 468,682 people have been confirmed positive for COVID-19. There have been 24,780 people hospitalized to date, with 330 hospitalized as of yesterday, which is the lowest it's been since October, and 5,105 people across the state who have been in the ICU, with 80 in the ICU currently. And if that number is correct, it hasn't been that low since last spring. We've lost, unfortunately, 6,302 people to COVID-19 across the state. So we move over to the Ramsey County dashboard, and we have 41,778 people confirmed positive for COVID-19, and unfortunately, 759 people have lost their lives. We scroll down a little to the vaccination numbers. 48,441 people in Ramsey County have received at least one dose of vaccine, and 13,667 people have completed both doses of vaccine. According to the Star Tribune, Minnesota moved from 44th in the nation for vaccine distribution up to 14th, so that's some positive news. There's a little more good news. Cumulative case and weekly case rates have declined across the U.S., Minnesota, and Ramsey County. As of January 23rd, you can see here that the weekly case rate has dropped to 12.7 per 10,000 residents. The positivity rate is down to 3.7%, which is the lowest it's been since we've had the dashboard set up last summer. I do want to draw attention to the racial and ethnicity data. So if we scroll down, I just want to show that 49% of all COVID cases in Ramsey County are white, while white people represent 66% of our population. Asian people are testing positive 18% of the time, but are only 13.6% of our population. 13% of the cases are people who are Black, yet 12% of the population. American Indian people are 1% of our cases, but 0.7% of our population. And Hispanic Latinx people represent 10% of the cases, but are only 7% of our population. All BIPOC communities are overrepresented among people who have contracted COVID-19. As for death data, while every life lost is too many, white people and Asian people are overrepresented among those we have lost. This data is important to pay attention to and should continue to not only direct who continues to have access to COVID-19 testing, but should also direct who has access to limited COVID-19 vaccines. Now that we've looked at the dashboard, I do want to take a moment to thank Chair Carter and the board, along with the St. Paul Mayor Carter and Deputy Mayor Tincher, for their support of a letter sent by the Minnesota Doctors for Health Equity outlining recommendations for specific steps for more equitable response to Minnesota's COVID-19 vaccination strategy. We will move away from the dashboard for a moment. The letter sent yesterday was addressed to key state leaders and asks them to use racial and health equity strategies and data to inform a better plan for distribution of vaccines to include all people who are most at risk. In addition to our older populations, data has shown us that Black, Indigenous, Asian, and Latinx populations have faced the highest risks of exposure and death since the beginning of this pandemic. Yet the current vaccination plan focuses on distribution to individuals outside most of these demographics. The letter also asks for key community voices to be a part of the vaccine distribution decision-making process. In addition to this request, Ramsey County continues to ask our state partners to allow us to vaccinate our most vulnerable and most at-risk populations, which will further slow the spread of COVID-19 and ultimately save lives. Adapting the current phased recommendations to allow for additional people who are at greatest risk based on race, culture, ethnicity, language, and additional age demographics within these groups would allow us to continue to partner with our community leaders, community clinic partners, community organizations, and healthcare systems to expand COVID-19 vaccinations and recreate a more equitable response. So again, thank you, Chair Carter and the board, for your continued push for an equitable approach to vaccine distribution. And with that, I will turn it over to Medical Director Dr. Lynn Ogawa.
Thank you, Deputy Director Hedin, Madam Chair, and rest of commissioners. They've relegated me to give some science today, so I'm going to do that. It's difficult to follow the excitement, though, over Black History Month and Deputy Director Hedin's very thoughtful thoughts. So they asked me to talk a little bit about the vaccines that are on the in the future, hopefully coming soon. The first one is the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. It is a viral vector vaccine, which is a little bit different than our messenger RNA vaccines. A little bit older technology, but still very good. It is a single shot. That is the other reason why this is exciting. You know, a lot of what's happening with us delivering vaccine right now is that we get the first shot in, and then we also have to make plans for and have enough vaccine to have a second shot. And so that can sometimes cause what appears to be slowness in getting vaccine out. However, with the Johnson & Johnson, it'll be a single shot. It also is less fragile, and so it can be kept at standard refrigeration and frozen temperatures. The Johnson & Johnson submitted its emergency use authorization application on February 4th. And so we expect we should be hearing anytime soon about whether or not it's been being granted its emergency use authorization. Some of the information about that vaccine is that it does seem to be a little bit less efficacious than the other two. reporting an efficacy of about 66% overall. However, that's still a very good and efficacious vaccine. And given that it is easy to transport, easier to dispense, definitely one, as soon as we can use, will get out to the public as well. The other one that will likely be applying for emergency use authorization soon is the AstraZeneca vaccine. It also is a viral vector vaccine. It requires 2 shots. It also was the one most recently halted, the study, the phase 3 study in South Africa, because it was only unfortunately showing about a 22% efficacy against the new South African variant. So it's very efficacious against the regular and the UK variant, but not so much against the South African. I'm going to talk briefly about the variants after I talk about one more vaccine, and that's the Novavax vaccine. This is one that Laura Anderson is very excited about, too. The science behind this one is brand new, and it is actually a spike protein vaccine. So remember how we talked about how the messenger RNA is transcribed and makes a spike protein, and then that is what our body fights. Novavax, the company, has the ability to actually transcribe and create the protein itself in moth cells. Laura also wanted me to make sure that I commented on that because that's kind of cool. And then it injects the protein. It requires 2 shots as well. It's showing about an 89% efficacy, though, which is also a very good efficacy. It can also be changed relatively rapidly, like the messenger RNA, because they can just change the messenger RNA to cover a potentially new spike protein. And the other thing about the Novavax is it's stable at standard refrigeration, not frozen. So it's actually a lot easier to move around. The last thing I'm going to comment on is the variants. The UK variant has its mutation in its receptor binding protein. The reason that that's important is that, as mentioned, all of our vaccines are for the spike protein. So that's why almost all of our vaccines are showing excellent efficacy against the UK variant. Unfortunately, the South African variant has multiple mutations in the spike protein. And so we're seeing a wide range of whether or not the vaccines focused on the spike protein will be protected against the South African variant. Most recently, there was some good data, though, that came out that individuals who had been given Moderna and Pfizer, when they take the antibody out of those people and they put it in a jar, literally, with the South African variant, it still neutralizes it. And so we feel strongly that it's still adequate for Moderna and Pfizer. The problem has become now the studies, the phase 3 studies done on AstraZeneca vaccine shows that in the country of South Africa, it was only showing about 22% effectiveness against that strain. So this is also the difference between real world and what we call bench science. We don't always know how it's going to translate in the real world. Those, I think, are the main points that I was going to make today. And then I was going to turn it over. Oh, actually, one other main point, and that is the faster we get people vaccinated, the slower we should see mutations. Another reason why, even if the vaccines are not showing to be completely efficacious against all of the variants, the idea is to still get as many people vaccinated as possible, because the less the virus can be transmitted, the less it can be transcribed and replicated, the less mutations we will see. So it's also really important for us to be getting vaccine out, which is what we're working on doing. I will turn it over to Incident Commander Anderson to speak to the next issues.
Thank you, Dr. Ogawa, and thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. If Director Sigvalin could just briefly go back to that vaccine page, I'd like to have that on display while thank you so much, John. I just have a brief update for you all based on our allocation of doses from the state. As you are aware, we are still at the point where we do not have enough vaccine for our general population. Our vaccine rollout is based on individuals' living setting or their job. Now, the state has gone ahead and expanded into 1B, as you all know, through their community vaccine sites. Those sites are focused on individuals who are 65 plus, as well as teachers and childcare. Some of those sites have received a bit of earned criticism, I would say, based on the need for individuals to access the internet in order to potentially be eligible to receive vaccine, as well as have transit available to them in order to get over to a site. We continue to wait for published 1B criteria from our state partners, but we are certainly leading or leaning ahead using our federal guidance. We're working very closely with our outreach partners to improve our distribution strategies. And as Director Hedin has already mentioned, our distribution will be aligned with populations who have been most impacted by COVID-19. As of yesterday, we had completed more than 40 of those closed clinics for specific populations. We've delivered a little bit more than 5,700 doses of vaccine over the past 6 weeks. Our tempo has certainly improved. We're averaging more than 1,000 doses provided each week. And you will necessarily see the number of clinics that we're providing over time. The number will be reduced, but the population we are vaccinating will increase as our logistical capacity improves. So for example, this week we have about 6 clinics scheduled, and we anticipate administering a little bit more than 1,300 doses. We are very closely reaching out with our FQHCs, local pharmacies. We want to support their ability to reach Black, Indigenous persons of color who are also over the age of 65. And we also continue to support strike teams to go out into congregate settings where scheduled vaccinators are unable to vaccinate. I just want to be clear, it looks like we are holding on to a lot of vaccine. We've received 12,000 doses from our state partners. But because of the earmarking process, about a little close to 4,900 of those doses are actually earmarked for second doses. So at the current time, we have available just about 1,400 first doses. So we think that will take us through this next week. I just want to be clear on that for our residents as well. And I'm working very closely with our planning partners now. Commissioner Fretham had a good question about 2 weeks ago regarding refusals and how we document individuals who are vaccine hesitant. And we are working very closely now with our partner agencies to be able to document refusals so that we can continue to move on into populations, again, who need this vaccine most. That's all the update I have for you. I will go ahead and turn it back to Director Hedin. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Dr. Ogawa. Madam Chair, I am not Deputy County Manager Hedin, but I'll take us the rest of the way through the update and then we can take any questions. Just to put a fine point on 2 pieces related to vaccination, I want to underscore from today. And thanks to the work happening across public health and in partnership with all of our other partners, state and regional, local. First, as Deputy County Manager Hedin talks about the equity, racial equity, and cultural equity in vaccine distribution and effectiveness. This is not something we have not already been going through. And I think it's important for us to realize this is not something where we should be daunted or feel it is insurmountable. That's not to say it's easy, but we have been testing under similar strategies for almost the past 10 months. And so it is important for us to remind ourselves of where we have seen some level of success coming into now, and how do we employ the same metric that brought generally good feedback from our community and upticked the number of people who were willing to receive tests throughout COVID-19. How do we apply that same principle now at the moment of vaccination? And the letter sent on behalf of many organizations provides us an avenue to hopefully further that conversation in a way that is productive and helping us get at the heart of those most in need, dire need, urgent need across our community. Finally, I appreciate the information shared today regarding vaccines and trying to be as direct as possible. The simple fact of the matter is, until a lot more vaccine is available, you and I and everybody else involved in today's update will continue to receive feedback from individuals who feel like they should be next. They're frustrated they can't get a vaccine right now. They're worried about what it means to have a few more months without a vaccine. I am not here to downplay the seriousness of any of those concerns. They are fair concerns, and they're concerns that we as an organization share with everyone across our community. However, the best we can sometimes do is be as upfront about the information and numbers as possible, even when it's hard for some to have to hear that we don't have enough right now. We'll continue to try to find ways to be as direct and clear in that information and stand by the prioritization we are working to provide in the policy direction that the board has laid out throughout our COVID-19 response. And that is my pledge here today to all of you and the community at large. We hear you, and we want to do all that we can to be responsive. Sometimes that means communication, and hopefully before too long, it also means mass vaccination on a level that we can't quite do yet. Turning away from vaccines to a few other updates. Good news from the Minnesota Employment and Economic Development Department that Ramsey County Union Depot received funding through the Convention Center pandemic supports that have been provided by the state. That information will be coming before the board. I believe March 2nd will be the date. That'll be in front of the Regional Rail Authority for acceptance. But good news that in some of the financial areas where we continue to see significant challenge, we appreciate the state and their work in working with Ramsey County and partners across the state of Minnesota. There was a ton over the last week specifically related to housing instability and homelessness. I am not going to do a full rundown of the work that has taken place since last Tuesday. We have seen our coldest week of the year, our most dangerous week of the year. And from our Department of Housing Stability to the incident management team, to our public health staff, to our partners, particularly in the city of St. Paul, and to our community providers from nonprofit entities, people stepped up. And in that stepping up, many people were able to stay off the street who may have been hesitant to come inside until now. And for everyone who's been in a warm house that even feels cold on these cold days, we know how important that is. The cold is not over. Our work is not in any way done, but I want to call out the Herculean efforts that have been going on by so many and appreciate it, and continue to recognize that the system that has been built today was better prepared to respond in the moment and in the emergency than in the past. Finally, there's chatter at the federal level about future stimulus plans, timelines for that, whether it's end of February or mid-March remains a bit unclear, but it appears likely that one of those two timelines or somewhere in the middle will likely bring additional stimulus money across the country to individuals, hopefully to state and local governments and many other entities as well. Know that the incident management team at this point has 3 real goals in front of it as we continue to think about where we sit. One is to support and ensure an effective testing and vaccination response through public health. The second is to continue to spin off certain areas into the organization where the work needs to continue for a long time forward and should move out of an emergency response structure for that work. That would include food and basic needs, service delivery, and homelessness. And then finally, it is the incident management team is prepared for an infusion of financial supports that, again, will need to be prioritized, brought through the board, expended, and to be the group that is prepared to take on that work. And so there remains some unknown in front of us as we continue into 2021. But we believe we have a structure in place that we did not have at the outset last time. We believe we have lessons learned from our first time through a COVID relief approach, and where we've seen great successes and where we would like to pivot our response. We look forward to what the future might hold, and the tide turning on the idea that state and federal support seems like a greater likelihood every day. With that, Madam Chair, we will collectively stand for any questions or comments you may have. Thank you to everyone for helping provide this COVID-19 update.
Yes, thank you to all. We do appreciate all of the information that you've shared. Certainly, you have responded to a number of questions that we've had over the week. And I do see a couple of hands, so board members will follow as such. Commissioner Fretham and then Commissioner McGuire. Commissioner Fretham.
Thank you, Chair Carter. This is probably a question for Dr. Ogawa, and I just wanted to thank Dr. Ogawa and Laura Anderson for their town hall last week. I was able to tune in for a bit of it, and it was really interesting and very informative, so I appreciate that you were able to do that. What I took from your discussion of the different types of vaccines is that folks should take whatever vaccine is offered. I think that even if one of them has a lower effectiveness, and I guess my question would be, if someone is offered, say, the AstraZeneca, and they take it, would there be anything preventing them in the future from getting one of the more effective vaccines once it's more readily available?
Chair Carter, Commissioner Fretham, that's actually a great question. The short answer is no. The longer answer, and what we're recommending to individuals, is that because, again, all of our vaccines right now are difficult to obtain and potentially going to continue to be, that they do not rush to get a more effective vaccine until we really have broader access to all vaccines. There haven't been also any studies that look at if a vaccine is additive. So in other words, if they get AstraZeneca or Johnson & Johnson and they are 70% covered, if they were to get a Moderna, are they an additional 30% covered, or are they an additional 10% covered? It also depends on the mutations and the variants that we see in the future. Very likely, what will happen is that Moderna and Pfizer, especially the messenger RNA vaccines, and potentially Novavax, will come out with boosters associated with the mutations. What will likely be the recommendations ultimately will be that anyone who received any vaccine in the past will get some kind of a booster. So that's the best answer at this point. Still definitely recommending that individuals not rush to get a second vaccine, certainly not within the first 3 months, and really not within the first 6 months of having received a vaccine. Also what's interesting is a number of people, one of the reasons that it's taking Johnson & Johnson and AstraZeneca a little bit longer to get their phase 3 data is that, unfortunately, when Moderna and Pfizer were approved with emergency use authorization, they lost some of their study populations to people who wanted to find out if they actually had received the vaccine or not. And then if they had not, they wanted to drop out and actually get a vaccine. That's one of the reasons, too, why I believe Novavax has been given the authorization to do what's called a crossover study. So all individuals in the Novavax study will be receiving 4 vaccines. In the first part, if they received the actual vaccine, in the second part, they will receive placebo. And in the beginning, if they had received placebo, the second part, they will receive vaccine, as long as it's shown to be effective. This is where it gets really, quite frankly, ethically hard to provide ongoing studies when we have vaccines that are working. However, none of these companies can produce enough vaccine that we need in the world. period. And so we do need to be getting as much, whatever vaccine we can.
Thank you. I'll call on Commissioner McGuire and then Commissioner Reinhardt. Commissioner McGuire.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and just thank you all for all of your work. I know this is just really tough when we all keep getting all these questions about it, and you're all working as hard as you can, and just appreciate the town halls and just all the information you're trying to get out. I have a couple of questions, and first I'll start with Dr. Ogawa on the line of that you were just talking about. So with this vaccine that now I lost my train of thought on that one. I'll come back to you because my original question was how do these numbers get determined of how much each county gets from the state? So the state gets the vaccines, right? And then each county gets a certain amount. And I think we're all getting questions from a number of people who have the ability, and we know this is a privileged population. You know, they're going to other counties. They're driving up to Cook County because Cook County has vaccines, and they're driving down to another county because they've got vaccines down there. So are those counties getting, they're not getting more than we are, I'm sure, but are maybe they not just delivering the vaccines in as deliberate a way that they have extras that people from our county can drive up there and get them? Can you just talk to me a little bit about that phenomenon and why and how the numbers are determined about which, are they determined by, how are numbers determined to go to each county?
Madam Chair, Commissioner McGuire, I can tackle that question. The state has a formula approach. It's based on persons in each county. So each county gets a specific percentage. But on top of that, actually, Ramsey County gets a little bit more based on the impact of COVID-19 in our communities. So we are receiving slightly more, as is Hennepin, as our other metro jurisdictions than outstate. I think what you're seeing, and I bet our colleagues in Cook County are saying, no, don't drive up.
Right.
I do think you will see variation in ability to distribute to what are called mission critical populations. Yeah. So the state has defined, has really asked us to remain very closely connected to 1A. And that's healthcare and long-term care residents and staff. What that means, if I'm in a smaller community with a handful of clinics, maybe one congregate facility, it is possible that I will have additional vaccine remaining, and I will utilize that vaccine further down the line. And I will use that vaccine potentially to vaccinate school teachers or correctional officers, other mission critical entities. So I do think that is what we're seeing. We're seeing a little bit of fragmentation or frankly, local decision making when it comes to those allocations. And that's probably, I know it's frustrating for residents. We are advocating hard to have more vaccine here in the metro. I know the Minnesota Hospital Association is advocating hard to have more vaccine available to local providers. So there are a lot of tensions at play here around how much vaccine goes to each partner. And I'll see if I can find a link on MDH's webpage, which describes the percentage allocation. I feel like that must be out there. So I'll look for that now.
I appreciate that. And I know we've all been talking about our elderly parents, and I have a 93-year-old mother who does not live in congregate care, and she's not getting the vaccine, but I'm not as worried about her as I was my brother, who was a teacher in the classroom. So, but I'm happy to say that he did get on a waiting list and he did get vaccinated, and we were grateful for that. We felt like he needed it more than my 93-year-old mother at this point, because she's not out and about, but he is. So I know it's hard and it's different, and none of that had anything to do with me. I mean, I just was grateful that he was able to figure that out with his educational facility. But I just thank you for all of that. And yeah, I think as much as we can just help our public understand sort of what's going on, because they do see these as we all do, these inconsistencies, and you know, I think none of us can go to a meeting now without getting a question about it. So I just appreciate the information that you're sharing. So I have two more questions. This is for Dr. Ogawa, and this you may not be able to answer, but you did say, you know, there's not enough vaccines for the people that we need to vaccinate in the world. And do you have any idea of when there may be enough vaccines? And are we talking 6 months, 8 months? You know, when we might have enough vaccines? Just curious.
Yeah, unfortunately, primarily the manufacturers are doing predictions really through 2021. So they are, I mean, and even then, for the U.S., we're not sure we're going to have it at that point either. And part of it is because part of Operation Warp Speed was that they were manufacturing as fast as they could to begin with. They're also setting up sites worldwide to actually manufacture vaccine. But all of the materials have to be available. And, you know, we're still dealing with some disruptions in standard shipping and other things. And so it's a catch-22. And then the other piece is everybody wants vaccine right now, worldwide. And we are also trying to recognize that, you know, should we in the United States, where we have the capacity to work from home, do other things, make significant mitigation, should we be getting vaccine above countries that don't have that capacity and that they are living in much more populated areas? So it's a difficult balance right now, but I am definitely not making any predictions other than the fact that we will not have enough vaccine for everyone who needs it probably through this year. Yeah.
I appreciate that. That was a tough question to estimate, but I really appreciate your response. There are a lot of issues, a lot of ethical issues here too. So I appreciate your recognition of all of that. Thank you so much for that. And Madam Chair, I just have one last question. We're talking so much about vaccines now. We just a review of getting tested. Should people still be getting tested, or what are the guidelines for getting tested now? Just so that I can be clear and we can share with our viewing audience.
I'll take this one too. The recommendations for getting tested are actually very similar to before. Okay. The good news is that, as Deputy Director Hadeen pointed out, our rates are dropping, but they are not zero. And so absolutely, people who are mildly symptomatic should be being tested, because the only way we know that something is not regular cold or regular flu is to be tested. And so anybody who is mildly symptomatic should be being tested. The other thing that we're recommending is also that consideration of when exposed, that 5 to 7 day test as well, because that's often pre-symptomatic. And if people have been exposed, we still want to catch people pre-symptomatic positives so that they can isolate and not continue to expose others. And then lastly, the more recent recommendations too are we still need to just be not gathering to the best of our ability, and staying 6 feet apart, because even pre-testing, we've talked about this, only gives you one point in time. And so it's helpful, but it's not perfect. And it's not a free pass, as we say, to gather with everybody. But primarily, mildly symptomatic and those who have been exposed definitely need to be being tested. I will share that in other congregate settings, we're still recommending that individuals be somewhat pre-screened and things along those lines, because in congregate settings where the risks are much greater for rapid spread, we're being careful of that.
I really appreciate all of your work. Everyone on this call, just thank you so much for everything that you're doing. Thank you.
Commissioner Reinhardt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a couple of questions. One question that I have is, I know that they have revamped for the state the lottery, and after they had the first one, and trying to figure out how to do it in a better way. And this one this one is a question for myself and others that went in and were eligible for this lottery, put their name in, didn't get chosen, which is fine. But the wait list, do you have to, because that was for the lottery, do you have to sign up again, or are you still on a wait list? Because there's no way to really check. So that's my first question.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Reinhardt, yes, your name is on a wait list, and it is quite possible in the next few weeks you will get a call inviting you to receive vaccine. You may have further to travel, depending on where you are in the state, because the state has moved from 9 different locations down to 2 at this time. One of those locations is in Minneapolis, however. So you are still, your name and information was kept, and my understanding is you could still very likely be called.
Okay. Well, and that was, yes, it was for me, but also I had gotten that question from others as well. And I think that it's important, again, communication is probably the most important thing here. I also wanted to point out, I guess, I know that we are all concerned, and the pandemic fatigue, as we have called it, I thought that it was challenging back last fall, but I have to tell you right now, some of the things that we're hearing out there, and I'm sure my colleagues are hearing the same things, are things that you just kind of go, how could you think that that is true? And that the statistics aren't bearing out some of the things that people are being led to believe. One of them was about the number of deaths that are being reported. And when I saw the dashboard today, and I thought about the fact that we know that more people have died as a result of COVID, whether that was the primary cause or because they were vulnerable and got it, that caused the death, that it's underreported as far as COVID-19. I had one person tell me that it was clear that it was the opposite way, that there were more people being reportedly dying or reportedly being died. Okay, I'll get it right, Jeff. Dying of COVID-19 than actually were, that it wasn't that bad. And this one I thought was kind of interesting because it's that loved ones are saying, well, even though my loved one died of a heart attack, we're just putting in COVID-19 because somehow you'll get more money. The stories and the things that are out there are really disturbing to me. And my response really, although I didn't think of it at the time, but I thought of it later, was if you have a loved one that's what they're reporting, then I would say I would question whether or not they were really a loved one if what they cared about was the money, if there was any. But the bottom line here is, and I'm just telling that story as one of some of the things that we're hearing out there, that people, because it's pandemic fatigue, but also if they can't get the vaccine right away, they want to downplay the seriousness of what's going on right now. You hear that the numbers are going down, so you feel more comfortable. When in fact, you should not feel more comfortable. You know that you have to wait for the vaccine, but this is still a very serious issue. And how something is reported or not reported isn't the issue. The issue is stopping or getting more control over the spread of this disease that is killing hundreds of thousands of people every day. I mean, it's just, I can't stress it enough. And so what I hope people will do, and what I told this particular person to do, was to believe what you want to believe, but base it on the actual facts. Because, you know, people will say almost anything, but be safe, do what you need to do, and know that this is serious, because the people that are behind those statistics, and I know that we do a moment of silence here, and we will do it at the end of this, I know, and how important that is, because they're not just numbers on a sheet of paper, they're real people. And they are someone's loved ones. In the last week and a half, I lost two of my aunts, one in South Dakota and one in Iowa. The one in Iowa did test positive for COVID-19 before she died. But and they were 96 and 87. So, you know, lived a good long life. It's not that, but they are loved ones, and every number is a person. And we just need to keep that front and center. I don't know what else to say. I'm getting a little off track here, but it's been a trying week and a half. The Reinhardt family from South Dakota, all the siblings, my dad's siblings, are now gone, and the last two within a week and a half. So it's serious. If people have questions, if there's something that they are they're questioning, they should get that. They should get the information. Deal with the facts. Take it seriously. The vaccine is coming for those that haven't gotten it yet. And again, these are individuals that are really suffering and families that are suffering. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Reinhardt. I see no further questions. I want to express thanks again for all of the reporting, for the positive information and hope that we have for moving beyond the trajectory of this crisis that we've been in, and for all of the work that our staff team is doing and working with our community. We're thankful that you listened so carefully to the conversation of commissioners last week and have worked with community around equity principles for vaccination practices moving forward. And as with everything else, we just thank you so much for reflecting this board's desires in your work. So thank you also, Commissioner Reinhardt, for sharing regarding your loss. We will take that moment for mindfulness, as we do following our COVID updates and reports. And at this time, we will take that moment of mindfulness, using our opportunity to breathe and reflection on the losses, the stresses, all of the work, and our positive hopes for the future. That mindfulness moment now, and then we'll move on. Thank you very much. And we are prepared then to move on. I will call on Commissioner McDonough for our administrative agenda.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move item number 4, the 2021 sale of tax forfeited property located at 705 East 7th Street to the Housing and Redevelopment Authority of the City of St. Paul. Item number 5, the 2021 repurchase of a tax forfeited property located at 1008 Carroll Avenue, St. Paul, Minnesota. I'll move item number 6, repurchase of a tax forfeited property located at 1801 Nebraska Avenue East, St. Paul, Minnesota. Item number 7, appointment to the Transforming Systems Together Partnership Committee. And item number 8, Public Works Construction Quarterly Report for October 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2020.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Commissioner McDonough and Reinhardt. The items have all been moved. There's motion on all items on our administrative agenda. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
McDonough,
Aye.
McGuire,
Aye.
Ortega,
Aye.
Reinhardt,
Aye.
Fretham,
Aye.
Modis Castillo,
Aye.
Carter.
Aye. Thank you very much. All items on the administrative agenda have passed, and I will call on Commissioner McGuire for our legislative update. Commissioner.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks always to our team of Jennifer O'Rourke, Melissa Finnegan, Commissioner Trista Mattis Castillo, and myself, who are meeting weekly to discuss the legislative work. And of course, Jennifer and Melissa are full blast ahead on all of the meetings that are happening at the Capitol, all of the virtual meetings that are going on. So it's, and this morning, the House Capital Investment Committee held a joint hearing with the House Housing, Finance, and Policy Committee, Preventing Homelessness Committee, to talk about housing infrastructure bonds. So this is a really good thing, and that we are moving forward as a state on looking at that. So we're going to hear more of the governor's policy bills, with some being introduced on Thursday and further on. So this is according to the governor's budget that he released last week, and now the bills are starting to come through from the legislators on that budget. So there's an update on the governor's state aid for emergencies account, or the SAFE account. This is that account that was going to give state aid for some of the issues that were related for emergencies that happened throughout a county. It's designed to reimburse local communities for mutual aid after significant critical incidents occurred, and it's being prepared in advance of anticipated unrest related to the trial of Derek Chauvin, and it's also in response to the incidents surrounding that. So the committee added language that would require the Peace Officer Standards and Training Board to create a model policy on responding to public assemblies, and so they're working on these changes, but they're not supported by all the entities. So the bill is on the fast track and is being voted on in Ways and Means this afternoon today. So wow, but it's also opposed by the sheriffs and police chiefs. And so we'll see what happens with that. Meanwhile, last Thursday, the Senate leaders released their own proposal to address anticipated civil unrest, and that authorizes the Department of Revenue to reduce local government aid amounts for cities that have failed to pay bills for mutual aid. This is pretty controversial, I would think. The amount will then be transferred to the billing city. So that's a bill that's been introduced, and that's in response to suggestions that Minneapolis has not paid bills for mutual aid that it received after the uprisings last summer. An allegation that Minneapolis disputes. So there's lots of conversation going on around the Capitol. So there's lots going on. I will talk just a bit about the federal COVID relief package. We mentioned it's being brought forward by Democrats and President Biden. There are 10 committees in Congress that will review different provisions over the next 3 days. And so there's just a few highlights of these bills. There aren't any breakdowns for counties, but this is what they are proposing for the country. And so they're looking at extending pandemic food benefits, home heating assistance, senior care, rental aid, homeowners needing help with mortgage payments and property tax payments. And then there's, of course, debate about the size of the relief checks and the income parameters that goes on that we've been reading about. And then $130 billion for school reopenings, that's nationwide. So, and also, as you know, discussion around the minimum wage and of course, they're always working on a lot of other things, but those are just some of the highlights of what's going on at the federal level. So those are the highlights of what's going on, and I welcome my colleagues to talk about any hearings that they've appeared before the legislature on this week, if they want to talk about any of them, but that is my report, Madam Chair.
Very much, Commissioner McGuire. I'm looking to see if others have comments, and they appear to be holding at this point in time. We appreciate the attention of our team and staff to the legislative action, both in our state as well as nationally, and your updates. I appreciate it. And so I'm going to move on then to our county connections with County Manager O'Connor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Two quick updates for you today. Much of my connections related to COVID-19, so we did it during the update. I think that on different days, Healing Streets, a project that we launched in the last biennial budget cycle in public health, is one of those things that remains as a new piece, right, to engaging with community to change the underlying conditions for repetitive group and gun violence in our community. As a part of that, it can be hard to make it tangible sometimes. We got a great update this past week from one of our staff working in the program, Mark Campbell, who just wrote about recent work with the family of a victim who'd been through a really painful spot, and their work in reaching out to Restoration Inc., who is working with Healing Streets under a contractual basis to do grief work. And you know, the family, it's one of those things. It starts often with a family that's overwhelmed and just immensely saddened by a tragedy that has happened. But as Restoration Inc. began to work with the family and hold a vigil, it's really began the process of journey around healing. And it highlights the importance of these partnerships, the positive impact they're having on our communities, especially in times of need. Together, we are all making a difference. It may not always feel like it, but our impact is being felt in communities. And it has to start somewhere if we want to change processes and systems. And so I know different days we'll hear different pieces around a multifaceted approach to how we are trying to build a more resilient community that's more trauma-informed in our response. I wanted to highlight this as a point in time piece to that. I struggle to say good news story because it's under terrible circumstances that I'm telling you the story to begin with. But at the same time, it shows how we are trying to upend the cycle of trauma and tragedy and violence that far too often continues to occur. Turning to one other spot in terms of work with our organization and connecting to community, just a shout out to the library and our interim library director and many others who have been involved in the process. They were able to bring in a young man. His name is Mr. Thomas Nelson III. He's a part of the Project Empowerment Academy, which is an initiative led by young people called Project Restore Minnesota. And Project Restore Minnesota, many of you are aware of already. They've been working with Workforce Solutions. They also work to help us evaluate our response last summer in the wake of civil unrest. And trying to figure out what we as a community could learn from that as a county to do better looking forward. And Mr. Nelson III had an opportunity to sit on the hiring panel for the deputy director in the library position. And it just was really neat to see a flood of emails from him and our staff who were a part of it. And through that process, just to see the difference it makes when we make space for community members and young people to be a part of the work. And I don't have his direct email here, but part of what he shared was learning about how the library is thinking about its work and programming in a way where he can go tell others. And that's really at the heart of what we've been trying to build and do. So a shout out to Karen Saltis in the interim role, and everybody else who's been a part of this work, just to say, keep at it and thank you. And most importantly, thanks to Mr. Nelson for giving up the time to be a part of this important interview panel for one of Ramsey County's hires. That's all I have today, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Well, I want to say thank you very, very much for that report. And it is encouraging all that you've shared, the Healing Streets work, abiding by public health principles to, as you say, upend that cycle by getting at those who are impacted most and helping there. And also hearing about the youth engagement work in our library process for hiring. It is so encouraging to know that we're not stopping there, but that we're doing so much around ensuring that our young people are not only served, but are also engaged as we build this work forward. So thank you to you, County Manager. Thank you to Danny Gibbons, our new Transforming Systems Together Director, for the work with Healing Streets before and for the engagement of young people upcoming and on an ongoing basis as well in the Transforming Systems Together work. I see Danny's face, and if you'd like to take a moment, you're welcome to do so.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Council, and Ryan and the rest of the team in the County Manager's office. So it's just a blessing to be not only in this position as TST Director, but to sit at the intersection of this work where, you know, our community is in the wake of so many different traumas, whether, you know, around the pandemic, around civil unrest, around, you know, residual trauma and violence and the grief that ensues therein. I'm just blessed to be at this table and to be in partnership with such an amazing crew of folks like the commissioners and the rest of the team in public health and the county manager's office. A special shout out to Mark Campbell for his amazing leadership and work during this transition. I thank you all so much.
Much appreciation. Thanks for being with us this morning. And so we are going to move on then to our outside board and committee updates. We'll start with Commissioner McGuire, wrap around our alpha list back to Commissioner McDonough, and then I'll have a few comments before we adjourn. Commissioner McGuire.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Another busy week, as we know. Someone else I know is going to talk about this, but what an amazing event the City County Summit on Economic Competitiveness was. I know we had great response and great participation from our local communities. Almost all of my cities had a representative on the call, and I know a number of us did. And just thanks to those who put that together, and Carrie Collins and all those, and I know others are going to talk about it, but it was a great summit. So thanks to everyone for that. The Child Care Policy Action Group met, and Commissioner Fretham and I can both talk about this, but we're continuing to be grateful for the work the community is putting into this. We continue to get about 15 to 20 people on the calls. There's a large group of people that are interested in the child care and our issues surrounding that. I want to thank Jennifer Schuster-Yeager, who has stepped in to lead that work, and Jamie Levine, who's going to be helping with the administration on that. Kristen Poffenberger, who still does great research and pulling data together. And then, of course, Elizabeth Tolsman, Ling Becker, and all who are just pulling all this great work together on child care. So we're hearing about the gaps. And I'd like, if Commissioner Fretham wants to talk about that, we're addressing provider needs and any small business support that we can provide, addressing worker and industry needs. And so just to let you all know that work is continuing. If you have anyone that wants to be a part of that, let us know and we can put them on the list. We're continuing to learn from each other and share great information on what's going on out there and moving forward. So thanks everyone for that work. Also, our AMC Futures met, and a few of us were on that call, and it continues to be great work. I know that Commissioner McDonough and Commissioner Carter and I were lucky to be on those calls. Heard from County Administrator of Stearns County, Michael Williams, on sort of how they approach doing resolutions on their county board. It was a great conversation on how they decide what actions to take on issues that may or may not affect counties. And I know we've been having those conversations as well. And then Bill Doherty talked about his work with Braver Angels and really how we can all come together as a as a state, of course, and as a country. So that was really great. And then finally, our Healthy Counties for NACO. We had our full board meeting on Friday and had a great conversation on community response and what we're doing with COVID, the COVID response within our communities. And it was a great meeting. And if you want any of that information, it's all on the NACO website. It was a great presentation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Ortega.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be brief. Regarding River's Edge, we had a meeting with Representative Jean. He was very, very positive and was going to get a hold of Representative Mariani to have a discussion to see how he could be a good advocate. Also had a meeting with City Council person Amy Brenmoen and Rebecca Naka to bring them up to speed on the River's Edge project, and got a very positive feedback there. Amy Brenmoen said there should be no problem getting a City Council resolution. Also, I attended the I-94, my first meeting for Rethinking I-94. It was a lengthy meeting, a little bit over 2 hours because of, they haven't met for over a year. So we were pretty much trying to reestablish the baseline since there were many new members, but we will be having regular meetings moving forward. And of course, you and I, Commissioner Carter, had 2 meetings together. I'll let you talk about those. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Commissioner Reinhardt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, since I spent probably a little too much time on the pandemic fatigue issue, I'll make this really short and just underline, highlight the fact that there are so many things that are taking place that I was able to attend, and I know others will be covering them too, but Reckoning with Transit Equity, White Bear Rotary had an event with Justice Alan Page, and there were so many others. I would just encourage people to look at the website, our website, and hopefully we've got a lot of the, I think we do have a lot of the events and meetings and just learnings that we can have regarding Black history. And I know this week I had to literally go, okay, how can I fit 2 things in at the same time? Well, not very easily, but at least with virtual meetings, we have a little more flexibility with going into many different things. But there's such richness in there, out there on Black History Month, and I hope that people take advantage of that to learn. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Reinhardt. Commissioner Fretham.
Thank you, Chair Carter. Again, I've also received positive feedback from city leaders on the economic summit. So excited to bring them into that work. And as Commissioner McGuire noted, we had another child care subcommittee meeting, and I really want to thank Ling Becker for the amazing work she and partners have done to pull together data on the early childhood and child care workforce here in Ramsey County, because that's really going to help lift up one of the major needs in supporting child care infrastructure in the workforce. Much of my week last week was consumed with my board commitments to Community Action Partnership. I was able to participate in their virtual leadership and management conference, which is great to think about ways we can continue to embed the work that we're doing here and leading with an equity lens into the work at CAPRW, especially as an organization that is mission driven to look at the root causes of poverty. So excited about that and moving forward with those efforts and bringing what I've learned back to the board and into our search for a new executive director. So thank you.
And thank you very much for that work. Commissioner Mattis Castillo.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. A couple updates. We're working hard on the Great River Rail, also known as second train to from Chicago, with Senator Kent last week, as well as Commissioner Kelleher, and others met with Senator Miller. So we do now have authors in both the House and Senate to move that forward, with Senator Miller as the chief author in the Senate and Representative Hausman in the House. And I just want to say, Commissioner Kelleher said, really encouraged us to reach out to the governor's office to make this part of the COVID recovery plan as we move forward. And so I want to thank Commissioner Ortega as the regional rail chair for authoring a letter on behalf of us and our platform, to make that part of the package and encouraging the governor's office. So I appreciate that partnership. Things are looking in the right direction, and we'll keep working hard to make sure this happens this year. And then lastly, as you know, I serve on the Veterans and Military Policy Committee for NACO, and I have drafted a resolution and submitted on the burn pit exposure bill moving forward. It's similar to right now, the VA has a registry for those who have been exposed to toxic things while they've been deployed, but beyond the registry, it doesn't do anything for veterans. And so we're moving it to make it similar to what we saw with Agent Orange, so that there are actually, we can make a connection to the serious illnesses from exposure from toxic chemicals and burn pits, as our service members had been exposed to. And so that resolution will be moving forward this week. But just wanted to share with the group that we're doing that because it is a huge impact to our local military and veteran community here in Minnesota. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Mattis Castillo, and particularly for your attention and representation of us in these matters. I'll turn now to Commissioner McDonough.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Two things. One is we had our East Metro Health Roundtable meeting last week, with the focus really on looking forward here. A lot of conversation around the impact of St. Joe's closing. They still have their 100 mental health beds open, but the difficulty we're finding here is most folks are accessing hospital beds through the ED, and with St. Joe's ED closed, the East Metro folks are not ending up in those beds at St. Joe's as much as they have in the past, and we're seeing St. Joe's actually utilize those beds for the greater M Fairview health system. So that means for folks from all over the metro or even all over the state. So and St. Joe's was at the table, and M Health Fairview was at the table. And we really need to be looking forward here on what that impact is, because the ED's gone. They've only made a commitment to keep those 100 mental health beds going through the end of this year. We'll see what it looks like going forward, but it was a great conversation. And then I just wanted to circle back to a part of Ryan's County Connection update. I did have an opportunity to connect a couple of individuals that were unsheltered to our system and get them sheltered. That was great. Ryan talked about it a little bit, but it warrants a little bit more. We've been a part of this for a long time, and every year, the issues are nuanced and different. But every year we kind of go through a polar vortex, as long as I can remember. And every year we seem to be scrambling. We're trying to sort things out into the night. We're adjusting that next day. We've got more folks than one person out unsheltered on any of these nights, or even during the day, is too many. But we tend to have more out there. And I just want to acknowledge, and Ryan acknowledges there, the work that we've been doing over the last couple of years have really prepared us that we can do this on a day-to-day basis. But our system is strong enough, and we've made the investments that when we have a week like we're having right now, we can be responsive. It's not, panic's not the right word, but urgent in trying to address things, checking in, and it's like, no, we've got this, we're good. And just about everybody who partners with us knows exactly how to manage this, and knows where folks are that need a little bit of assistance in helping make that decision to at least move indoors for this week and keep themselves safe. So I just want to acknowledge Ryan and Keith and the team that's been working on this for a long time, that it's there, it's working, and we appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Commissioner McDonough, for those emphasis, and to all of you for the work that you have done in this past week. It's so difficult to talk about all of the various commitments and engagements that you have sat in and participated on, but just suffices that you've represented some of them, and we know that there's far more work represented. I will share just a couple of items. We have a number of things ahead of us as we move forward in our day. Commissioners all together and in committees yet to come. So I will just mention Commissioner Ortega had shared that we were in a meeting together, and one of those meetings was with St. Olaf students, and together with Prince Corbett, who was on the call with us earlier today for the Black History Month proclamation. Prince has worked together with St. Olaf students and a professor in gathering together the materials that engaged people recently through our town halls. And the St. Olaf students have staffed that work together with him and will be representing it in a report to us that we will have soon. It was so wonderful to be able to talk with those students about their experiences, about what they learned during that work, and also about their exposure to Ramsey County and to the potential of working for people in public service through our county in the way that they did this past couple of months. So thank you to Prince also for that work. I'll also mention that our Commissioner Mary Jo McGuire has announced that she is standing to run for our National Association of Counties second vice president position, which of course, if successful, would put her in the executive team at the National Association. We look so forward to the collaboration with partners across the United States, such as is our role and process currently. And with her leadership and stepping up to this opportunity, we look forward to working with her and likely then benefiting even more from our work in collaboration through the counties with her in leadership. So I wanted to mention that. I also will share a number of things are happening today following our board meeting. We have a regional rail authority meeting, which we will convene. Commissioner Ortega will be leading. We will take a 10-minute break after that, and we will be online at a different link in our virtual workshop on the 2021-25 Transportation Improvement Program. In the afternoon, so bookending lunch, we have another workshop on our 4 to 3 lane conversion study, which will also be presented by that department, and that will be online at a different link. In between, there's a joint court county committee meeting, and so we will be moving swiftly through to conclude this meeting, to begin our regional rail meeting, to have our workshop after a 10-minute break at a different link, and the rest of the day. So I'm looking, and there are no further questions or comments on this meeting. And so our board meeting will be adjourned, and then we'll go directly to the Regional Rail Authority meeting. We are adjourned.